You may or may not know that I've had extensive personal experience with adolescents, just working with adolescents, studying adolescents, being around adolescents, being an adolescent. Um, but the ones that I love working with the most are the expecting and parenting adolescents. So at James Inc., James Inc. is the name of our organization. I am the executive director and the founder of the organization. And because over 40 years ago, I was an adolescent parent, I feel fortunate to have survived adolescent parenting. And in some areas of my life, I even feel like I thrived in some very key areas. I thrived in spite of delivering one child at 15 and a second at 18. I managed to graduate. Um, I managed to graduate with my class. I moved into an apartment of my own and I started my life. But to be completely honest, if I look back over my life, I know exactly where my fire for service to young people started. I can pinpoint the person, I can pinpoint the time. And I have to say, what I do today is what I've watched happen in my community my entire life, in my personal community. And when I say my community, I also include my extended community. But more importantly, the things that I do today are what I've seen my family do for years. My Aunt Dottie will be 76 on March 6th, was my very first mentor. My Aunt Dottie had a GED. She served as the community center director in the apartment complex in which she lived. When I say she served as the community director, I mean, she literally ran the apartment complex. The way the story goes is that Miss Dottie, which is what everybody calls her, she served as the community center director at the Mohawk Manor apartment site for 33 years until her retirement in 2007. Miss Dottie was a champion in the Mohawk Manor community, and she was instrumental in attracting key resources to benefit the families she served. She inspired countless youth, parents, community partners, and staff with her wise counsel, compassionate heart, and even her expressions of tough love. Oh, I'm back going too fast. Wrong one. And even her expressions of tough love. And I'm reading this because these are words that others have actually said. This is the way they describe her. But my Aunt Dottie had 3 kids, and she claimed me as her 4th. She insisted that we all go to college. And although she had a GED, all 4 of us went to college, and we all 4 are master's level professionals. I spend most of my weekends at her house. Um, my aunt's work within the community speaks for itself. If you grew up in Mohawk Manor in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you know Miss Dottie. I am a part of Miss Dottie's legacy, and the James Inc. model comes directly from her playbook. I can't claim any part of it. It is literally what I have seen her do for many years and for many young people. When I first spoke to Beverly, I asked her what she wanted her audience to walk away with. And she told me 3 things: to hear about the James Inc. model, to know a little bit about me, and to hear about our pivot after the pandemic last March. So, as she gave me my instructions and I thought about it, I had to admit that articulating the model was difficult for me. And it was difficult because in my mind, I needed to be scholarly. When we talk about models, I needed to be scholarly. So I really felt like I was making it too difficult. And the model is really, really simple. There's no rocket science about it. The first component of the model is, of course, transparency and authenticity. Now, I was lucky, very, very, very lucky to have access to people who were both transparent and authentic. people who were unafraid to be themselves, people who would pull your coattail and let you know that you were slipping, which is what my uncle would say. But they also let you know when you did something well. Um, I have to go and tell you a little bit about my granddaddy, who is Aunt Dottie's father. My grandfather was the father of 15 biological children. He and my grandmother had 15 children. Um, he also raised his oldest grandchild as his child, because my Aunt Dottie, who was child number 9, and my oldest cousin were born within 30 days of each other. So my cousin Joe became my Uncle Joe just by virtue of his age. Um, and at my granddaddy's house, when you have that many kids, and family is really important, everybody comes around. And so you're introduced to hundreds of different characters, because those 16 kids start to bring friends home. And then as we, the third generation, grew up, we started to bring kids in. And so everyone, if you can imagine, everyone had their circle. What I mean is, if you were specifically Christian, you were in the kitchen and you were singing gospel music. If you had an affinity for a little nip, then you were in the backyard with the nippers. During the day, outside was the kids' domain. But when the sun went down, the kids went into the house and they played in one of the 2 bedrooms, because my grandfather's house was less than 1,000 square feet. So in the evening time, the church people would be in the kitchen singing church hymns. The card players would be in the dining room. The nippers would be in the backyard. And if someone had an affinity for reefer, they may be in the front on the side yard. And so you got to travel between these circles and interact with these people who were different. And I always wondered, my grandfather was the deacon of the church. Why would he let this go on? And in my 30s, it became apparent to me that for him, it was more about us being together and being safe, as opposed to what we were doing. And it was about us learning the lessons. As we talked to different aunts and uncles, my aunt, that's the 6th child, was the first postmaster, African-American postmaster in the state of California. I had an uncle who left the Rose Bowl. Then we had people who were just general, everyday workers and laborers, but they all imparted different gifts and messages into us. So when I'm looking for a partner to bring a message to these young parents, authenticity and transparency is really, really big to me. It takes a lot of courage to be both transparent and authentic. And so those are the people that I gravitate to. This past May, we were preparing for our Summer Parent Academy. And our Summer Parent Academy is basically a 16-day summer camp for parents, expecting and parenting adolescents. And so we were preparing for that summer camp, and we asked Shelley Academy to kick off the leadership session for us. And she gladly did. And so, you know, one of her first slides was this slide. And just like in every situation, when you're talking about yourself, you kind of put your accolades out on display. And so we were able to see that, you know, she was an honor society president in 10th grade. And so my people are feeling like, okay, this leadership person, here we go. We're hearing about this person that did wah, 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 wah. And, you know, at 45, she was Woman of the Year. And you can just imagine a teenager who's pregnant and who's thinking, I will never be able to accomplish this and the things that they may or may not have been feeling. So I was thinking, oh my God, I hope we're not going to get 60 minutes of this is who I am and this is what I did. Although everyone was impressed, and I hope that you're impressed too by her stellar resume. But it wasn't until she hit us with the next slide that she got our full attention. And if you're paying attention, if you were paying attention to the other slide, then you know that there were some holes. There were some holes in that slide. And she filled in those holes for us. And she had everyone's attention from that moment going forward. And she did 5 sessions for us. And that first session, she had about 25 participants, and every one of her sessions were filled from that moment on. This really, really, but as you can tell, she was vulnerable. She gave them the opportunity to talk about the different things that jumped out at them. And she just broke down all of these perceptions of who they thought they were going to hear that day, and what leadership really, really looks like. And if you remember being a kid, you have those perceptions of what people's lives are. I know myself, I remember as a 23-year-old going to my friend's house for the first time, and my friend and I had been friends since 2nd and 3rd grade. But she married a professional athlete. And when I went to her house for the first time, as I prepared, I bought all of these things that were not really reflective of who I was. These clothes. I mean, I had like silk pajamas, and in my mind, that was the way a professional person lived. And I got to her house, and she had on the same t-shirts that we wore at sleepovers in the 10th grade. So not only have I brought incorrect assumptions to the picture, the young people that we work with have these incorrect assumptions also. And so we really want to put people who are unafraid to be authentic in front of them. Brianna was one of our clients. This became the host of our podcast, and she interviewed an attorney for her first recording. And I said, Brianna, could you please just do a short thank you to this attorney for being your host? And I've read her writings on multiple occasions. I know how well she writes. I know how she writes. But in this particular case, she sent me a thank you note that, I don't know if she thought she was writing to the president. I don't know who she thought she was writing to, but it was completely out of character. And what she really needed to say was in the last 2 sentences of the 3rd paragraph, and she had all of this fluff. And we really had to go back and say, yes, he's an attorney, but he's just a person. Just say thank you. So that authentic and real person that's a part of our model is there so that they can assist us in breaking down those incorrect perceptions that our clients come to us with. The second part of the model is exposure. And I know we talk about exposure to people, but exposure has been so much more than that for us. We are exposing them to things in this city that they don't even believe that are open to them or are part of them. We have taken them to the Parade of Homes, to 36 Degrees North. When I tell you, is everyone here familiar with the Parade of Homes? When we take these young parents, 18 to 24 years old, to the Parade of Homes. And we talk about how this is the cheapest free date that they can go on and how they can dream. And we teach them to not run into the house and say, how much is this? We teach them to go to those areas where the paperwork regarding the house is there. We teach them how to interview the builders. In fact, we make a point of letting them interview female builders because there are so few of them. And they really, really get into this experience. And every year they beg to go back to the Parade of Homes. And then after we go, then they oftentimes come back a second and third time to bring other family members to have that same experience. So we do things that they wouldn't necessarily do or think of. And we try to tie those things back to an occupation. You know, when we do the Parade of Homes, then we introduce them to construction, and we introduce them to the plumber who is not the one who's over the toilet bowl plunging, but to the plumber who's actually setting the plumbing up in the foundation so that they can see the difference and know that there are options within that occupation. 36 Degrees North, a think tank for entrepreneurs. We try to have classes there. We've done things like blueberry picking. We go to local greenhouses, living arts, Philbrook, the supercomputer. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that we've introduced them to board work. We've allowed them to start their own board. So the Young Parent Advisory Board is really the working board of our organization. And we've taught them strategic planning, we've taught them teamwork, we've taught them leadership, we've taught them organizational structure, we're teaching them fundraising, and all of these are things that are occupations that they may or may not have seen themselves in, but it also gives them real skill sets to put on their resume when they come to us. You know, I worked in McDonald's and I was a cashier, but many times that's the extent of their work experience. And everyone says, well, we want to give them internships, but you know, it's not often that comes to fruition. So we just started to create non-pay internships and to train them and teach them on real projects that they can implement and see to fruition themselves. The picture that I use here, if you see, I give photo credit to Shayna Lowe. Shayna Lowe is a student, a client of us. And let me make this clear, we're not a behavioral health agency, we do life coaching. But Shayna Lowe has been with us for 4 years, and she is a young lady and mom of 4. As such, we have introduced her to all of the discussions around multiple pregnancies and the pros and cons. She really, really, really just wants to be a mom. And so having these children is important to her, but she also wanted an outlet in order to bring in extra income. So Shayna took a photography class that a student of ours had taken 4 years ago. And that student, when she went through our Summer Parent Academy and she took the photography class, she won a photo package, a camera package, and she started her own photography business. Well, 3 years later, she wanted to teach basics. So she presented a class through J.A.M.E.S of photography basics. And we turned it into a contest and asked those clients who were interested to apply and take this class. Well, Shayna took the class, and this is one of the photos that she took as a result of the class. And so subsequently, she is now the program photographer when she's available. and we get the benefit of her beautiful work. She gets to practice the skill and build her resume, and we use the photos in our marketing. You know, we just introduce them to the same common sense things and my Aunt Dottie would take us to when we were little kids in Mohawk, and she would work to charter a bus so the kids in the community could go to Silver Dollar City or go to a play, or we just do basic common sense stuff, and we try to make it as cost effective as possible. Now, you may be thinking that these 18 to 26-year-old parents, this is the stuff that you do with younger kids, but I have to tell you, this group of adolescents, when they become parents, in my opinion, they are the forgotten group. We as a community do really, really well with young kids and older adults. We remember to send backpacks home for little kids who are school age. We, you know, Meals on Wheels, we take care of our elderly. But when you become a teen parent, the message becomes it's no longer about you, it's about the baby, and that everything that you need to do has to be focused around that child. But what we found is if we don't help them to figure out who they are, those children don't have a chance. So all of our programming is around how do we do the best job of professional and personal development for the mother or the father, because we work with fathers also. And you think that these small activities that we're doing don't make an impact, but what we hear is they love it because they've not been to most of these places. Most of the activities are free, so they can return on their own and they can share with their families. Um, we allow them to bring their babies with them, so babysitting doesn't prevent them from attending, and that's most activities that we do. And if it's a big activity, we generally have a group of volunteer retired ladies who come and help us bounce babies and talk to babies and rock babies. They do draw the line at changing messy diapers. So they'll give it back to the mom, but we always have someone there that's willing to hold the baby. Um, the biggest benefit of these things is that we get to bring them together with other young parents who are struggling with becoming adults. And I mean the adults that society expects them to be because they're parents. You know, we think, oh, she's had a baby, she has to be a grown-up, or he needs to be a grown-up when they're adolescents and they're still going through the adolescent development that anyone else goes through. My 24-year-old doesn't have a baby, but I promise you, some of the things she says to me, I just cringe and think, oh my God, do you really, really think that way? And it's because she's a 24-year-old adolescent and her world is the way she sees it and not always the way the world really is. And I see this so much in our young kids. So again, the model we serve is for a population that's often overlooked, and we're thinking about things that they can do that are simple, that brings them back into community. The next part of the model is support. And this is V. V is one of our fathers. And this is on a visit that we all took to New Leaf, which is another nonprofit organization that uses disabled persons in order to plant and sell flowers. And so we go there and support them by buying some of the flowers that they've planted for us, but they also teach us about flowers and planting and all of those things too. So last year, a lot of our clients grew tomatoes for the first time. peppers and flowers. But V is one of our parents, and in this photo, he is entertaining. You can't see the third child, but he's entertaining three of the children while the mothers walk around. When I think of support, support is, again, another pillar of our model. It reminds me of my own family story. I was 23 when I went to college. I was going through a divorce. I had left my home and all of my belongings there. I knew that I had been accepted to college, to NSU, and I knew that I was moving June 1st. What I didn't know is when I went back to my home to get my things, I didn't know if those things were still going to be there. And so on June 1st, my mom and I drove a U-Haul truck up to the apartment. We loaded up all of our stuff, and she moved myself and my two children, who were at this time 4 and 8, to Northeastern State. So that's an example of the support. But also the support came because, like I said, my Aunt Dottie had 3 children. She raised us together. She expected us all to go to college. When I got there, my 3 cousins were already in college. And so when we pulled up the U-Haul, my cousin drove up behind the U-Haul, and all of his fraternity brothers jumped out of the car and packed all of my stuff into my new apartment. And because they were his friends and I was his cousin, they became my friends, not because they knew me, but because they knew and loved him. And so we try to create a community of support that's like what I've seen. One of my proudest moments is a couple of years ago, a parent was on one of our chats and said that she needed some personal items. And another parent said, "Oh, I have some extra stuff. What's your address?" And so we didn't talk about it again after that. And 2 weeks later, we were together face to face. We were doing a group session. And this mother started talking about how much she appreciated receiving these items from this other parent. And the other parent said, "Oh, that was your house?" She said, "Yeah, that was my house." And the other parent said, "Oh, I dropped those things off." And they had never met each other. They didn't know each other, but because they were in this circle, they just really felt supportive of each other. So I really love that about the environment that we try to create within our cohorts. But the other thing with support is that we take into account the circle back nature of our clients. When things are going well, when they're pregnant and they don't know anything, then we can't get rid of them. But as soon as they have a moment where they feel like they're doing well, or boyfriend comes back into the picture, then they fall off. And normally when that would occur, if you don't hear from them in 2 or 3 months, then we do a discharge. Our agencies will discharge them. But we understand that they will circle back. And as soon as the next issue comes, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, they always come back. So we leave the door open, and we have created an environment where they can just pick up where they left off. So circle backs and support and understanding the nature of that is really, really important for us. The next part of our model is opportunity. And if you don't know these 3 ladies, I encourage you to pay attention because you're going to see them sometime in the future. Linda is our Hispanic young lady, and she's been with us about 18 months. And because of her involvement in J.A.M.E.S, she was recently accepted into the Hispanic Leadership Institute, which is through Leadership Tulsa. She represents J.A.M.E.S as a member of that learning experience. Linda ultimately wants to obtain a doctor of osteopathic medicine with a focus on surgery. She's our community relations representative on YPAB, our Young Parent Advisory Board. Her biggest influencer is Cesar Lozano. And Linda learned that her voice is indigo, which represents structure and organization. She learned this at our December strategic planning conference, which was held in Crystal Bridges. This next young lady is Brianna Hamilton Maynard. She is our activist. She loves all things political, and she is going to be a powerhouse in the area of social justice. She is the mom of two, and Linda is also a mom of two. But Brianna is a mom of two under 3 years of age. She is a communications major at ORU, and she is channeling Queen Maxine Waters in this picture. Maxine for her is confidence, power, and solidarity. So this is Miss Brianna, and again, all of the activities that they have had have come through their involvement with J.A.M.E.S Inc. And Miss Brianna is the new host of our Young Parent podcast. So be on the lookout. Our newest episode comes out today. So be on the lookout for her. In this interview, she is interviewing someone from the LGBT community, and they are talking about what we need to know about that community and also about issues that are facing young parents within that community. So Leah is the third person, and Leah came to us as a very shy adolescent mom, struggling to find her voice and her footing. She didn't have a lot of parental support, but she returned to high school and she graduated. She has overcome her shy nature. She is the president of YPAP. She's a huge leader for us. She has 21 hours left to finish her associates at TCC. She is passionate about our earth and growing veggies and flowers. She's the mother of Lilith, whom she adores, and she is a sexual health advocate for Take Control Initiative. Her role model is Joy Harjo, whom she is channeling here. And Leah believes that all forms of art are a way to implement ideas and change in the community and the world. So all of these ladies have grown and have had huge opportunity because of their involvement. We have done referral letters, we have taught skills, we have just done everything that we could do in order to make them successful, but also to give them the courage to step out and try something new. So these are our people. And now, the pivot. March 19th, 2020, in the spring break, and what the news that I got was all of my interns for NSU were being called back because of COVID. So I had virtually no staff. Our offices closed. We had no way of staying in contact or providing face-to-face services with our clients. In early April, we received a small grant because our students did not have the money, nor were they savvy enough to run out and hoard toilet tissue, paper towels, food. None of those things, the things that everyone else was paying attention to, they just were not there. And because it was the end of the month, they didn't have the funds to hoard those things, even if they knew that they were available. So in April, we just started providing opportunities. We started to learn how to do Zoom meetings. We started setting up weekly, 2 or 3 times a week. We would just get on and talk about sharing our stuff. We would look for clues for depression. We would talk about walking and getting out. We were just trying to connect and figure out what was going on. And then in April and May, it's usually a big planning period for our June activities. And so we didn't know how we were going to do our summer program because it had been face-to-face. And we just resolved to do it online. And in June, we had about 70 hours of curriculum that we presented over Zoom. And we had over 700 audience participants and panel members. So we learned that this Zoom platform was going to be a good platform for us. And then from July to December, we just spent every available hour trying to COVID-proof our operation. And so that resulted in our updated website, which I will show you in a little bit. So our mission is to lead expecting and parenting adolescents to self-sufficiency. These are some ways that you can support us. We have a podcast. The Young Parent Advisory Board set an $8,000 fundraising goal that they're working on. 1 hour of coaching, a sponsorship for leadership training, like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce or the Hispanic event. That's probably about a $500 value, and the chamber gave her part of the money, but we also supported part of that. A Summer Parent Academy, we do a virtual book club. All of those are some of our programming.